timely, topical, contemporaneous, allusion by President Obasanjo to say, look, this country, yes, we can move from potential to real greatness if we put the right people there. Don't go and bring people who were governors in 1999, or people who have been going to the Senate to go and sleep, or people who have nothing to offer. Look for people who have integrity, who have character, and who have ability, as President Obasanjo pointed out. So all of this.
Hi guys, Rufai and Dr. Abati has come out to blast a Miloko regime after our two former presidents issued a serious warning concerning a Miloko government that is elevating poverty and hardship in the country. Watch this video to hear the words from Rufai and Dr. Abati, and don't forget to share your thought with us.
Interesting viewpoints and comments by two former presidents of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Rufai.
I mean, there's nothing they said there that has not been said, in fact, overstated in the first place. Nigeria has great potential. But potential is not enough, because life is not about what you have. It's what you do with what you have. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was in a friend's house. A history buff like me, collect a lot of historical materials for pleasure. And we saw the Times Magazine article written about 1960 or 1963, thereabout. Tafawa Balewa was on the front cover, and I think Nigeria had just become a republic then, if my memory serves me right. And the argument in the Times Magazine then was that if Nigeria got it right, the black nation definitely will get it right. Nigeria was a signpost, was a beacon of hope for the black nation. Just like Gamal Nassi was the beacon of hope for the Arab world. But we did not get it right. 5 years after, we had elections that were disputed. The events around the election snowballed into a civil war. We fought the civil war for another couple of months. 1970, we finally called it quits on the civil war. 73, we made some money. We ought to have used that money to invest in our economy, but we didn't. We squandered our riches. That money we made became a problem. We had so much inflation to a certain extent that inflation was so high that workers couldn't get by any longer, and they had to give them workers' wage increase in wage. The committee was headed by Jerome Udoji. We pumped more money, inflation increased. We returned to democracy, but guess what happened? The corruption only continued under Shagari. We first blamed the Ghanaians for our problem. We said Ghana must go, but we saw that it wasn't the Ghanaians. We had an affair with IMF. It didn't work out. We had a currency experience in '86, just like we're doing now. So all the things we are doing now, we've done it before. It's a cycle. We had a currency experiment. We started something called the Secondary Forex Exchange Market, SFEM. We said, when we float the Naira, it was going to find a level around 3 Naira to the dollar. It moved up to 8 Naira thereabouts. It never found this level. We went through that military regime again. Elections were botched in '93. June 12 happened. Then we had a seeming ray of hope when we came back to democracy under Olusegun Obasanjo. We got some leeway. Our debts were forgiven by the Paris Club. But guess what again? We squandered the riches again, and we're back to square one. We know what will make Nigeria succeed. Good leadership, fairness, accountability, removal of ethnic bigotry, sensible economic planning. But are we ready to do it? We know the truth about what will make Nigeria succeed. The truth is constant. We know the truth. It is constant. It is not relative. It is constant. But are we ready to do the things that will make Nigeria succeed? President Kennedy said something very profound. When America was charging to go to space at Rice University, he said, we want to go to the moon. We want to go to the moon and do other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Nigeria wants to succeed and do other things, not because these things are easy, but because they are hard. Can Nigeria do the hard job of shunning corruption, having good leadership, fixing our electoral system, fixing our judicial system, fixing our economy, and having transparency and honesty and removing ethnic bigotry? These things are the truth of what we need to do to fix our country. There's no relativism in them. I'm not talking about Einstein this morning, relativity theory. We know what to do, but do we have the courage? Like Napoleon calls it, this 3 a.m. in the morning courage. The French would call it courage et force. Like our national anthem says, if I'm to sing it in French, to serve with heart and might, courage et force, en nation liée par la liberté, la paix et l'unité, to build a nation where peace and unity shall reign. I rest my case.
Okay, a number of issues. The first is to congratulate former Minister of Finance, former Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, what we call MITI, Olusegun Aganga, former Managing Director of Goldman Sachs, who came home to serve his country. And he served in the Jonathan administration in two major capacities. And now he has written a book, his own reflection on the Nigerian process, tied with his own international experience as a Nigerian, an ambidextrous Nigerian who has lived at home and has lived abroad. And he titles it, Reclaiming the Jewel of Africa. Now, the jewel of Africa that Mr. Ganga, Minister Ganga, as we used to call him, is referring to, is about Nigeria. Nigeria is the main subject. And he's saying that Nigeria is a country of possibilities that can move from potential to self-actualization. And then, of course, the peg of the story that has been presented before us is a statement made by President Jonathan and President Obasanjo. And the whole point here is that, look, the new administration would have to introduce policies that can be in the best interest of the people. This is what we say here on this platform every day. And I guess the background to all of that is the pain, what President Tinubu calls childbirth pain that Nigerians are going through. So how do you, fulfill the hopes, the expectations of the people? After all, the slogan of this administration is about how to restore hope. So on that score, both former presidents are correct. Nobody can argue with that. But President Obasanjo went a step further to say that we're sitting on a keg of gunpowder and that there could be problems if we allow more people to slip into poverty because of, he said, poor implementation of policies. Now, that's one of the things we say here. Everybody agrees, yes, fuel subsidy removal is fine. You want to do agriculture, that's fine. You want to give the people palliatives, that's fine. But the rub of it is this movement from policy agenda to execution, to implementation, to monitoring and evaluation. This is where Nigerian leaders miss it all the time. And the point has been well made, not just by the two former presidents, but by everyone else. The policies that have been introduced, there's a disconnect in terms of how those policies are being actualized. And President Obasanjo was lamenting. He said over the last 63 years, this country, called Nigeria, has not lived up to expectations. He says we have failed. He says we have disappointed the world. We have disappointed Africa. We have disappointed ourselves. I'm quoting him, almost verbatim. He said in 1960, Nigeria was regarded to as the giant in the sun. Is Nigeria now a giant? No. Nigeria is now a giant with clay feet. So in a sense, some people may say that indeed President Obasanjo was also engaged in a business of self-indictment. Maybe he was indicting himself because he had not taken the time to write a letter. Maybe if he wrote a letter, he would be far more specific, focusing on the Tinubu government. But he's saying, for 63 years, this country of greatness, of potentials, this country that is supposed to be a giant in the sun, is not a giant. If it is a giant, it's a giant with clay feet. What is the purpose of Olusegun Aganga's book? To recommend options for that greatness, how to move Nigeria forward. But President Obasanjo added a few of his own. He talked about peace and security, which he says is really fundamental. He talked about education, which he says is important. And he raised a poser. He said, look, we have Nigerians who are excelling at home. We have Nigerians who are excelling abroad. Why is it that it is the third 11, the MC Oluomo group, Why is it that they are the ones that we keep putting in charge of opportunities and powers? Where are the brilliant, the geniuses that this country, has in abundance? And I guess in that regard, he was trying to send a message to President Tinubu. Don't go and bring third division characters as your ministers. We want people who can make a difference. And in that regard, he engaged in a self-congratulatory, exploration, which I think, again, is very instructive. When he said, when he was president of Nigeria, he brought gifted people to come and work for this country. And he started, of course, with Olusegun, with Minister Ganga. He said Minister Ganga was MD of Goldman Sachs when he attracted him to Nigeria. And then he was running at the time the Nigeria Leadership Institute in collaboration with Aspen Institute. I happen to be one of the fellows of the Nigerian Leadership Institute, and I've also attended Aspen Institute and other. Yes, it is true. Minister Ganga drove that process to create leaders, to groom people, to teach about leadership. And it was in that process that he was brought home to come and be a minister to serve his country. President Obasanjo also said, look, there are many other persons that he groomed. Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who is the DG of the World Trade Organization. Leslie Obiora, Akinwumi Adesina, who is at the African Development Bank. He gave a long list. Obiezu Kusile, Babatunde Oshotimehin, Professor. Nobody will argue that these are distinguished Nigerians mentored by President Obasanjo. And I think that that's a very timely, topical, contemporaneous, allusion by President Obasanjo to say, look, this country, yes, we can move from potential to real greatness if we put the right people there. Don't go and bring people who were governors in 1999, or people who have been going to the Senate to go and sleep, or people who have nothing to offer. Look for people who have integrity, who have character, and who have ability, as President Obasanjo pointed out. So all of this is not just about, looking out for the poor. It's also about getting people who can serve the poor and deliver. Where President Obasanjo, from what I read, avoided mentioning Tinubu's name. He spoke in general terms. President Jonathan also did not mention anybody's name. Both of them are just saying, look, we need a good team. We need to look out for the poor because the people are in pains. Finally, I recommend Mr. Ganga's book, Reclaiming the Jewel of Africa, to everyone, to read it. Because oftentimes we have these book events. A book is launched. It contains so much knowledge, so much information. Nigerians don't read. Some characters will go there. They will say, I present this book with 100 million. They will never read the book. They will say, give me 10 copies. Those 10 copies, they will never open the first page. But all of these books, more will come out. Okay, Tony Akesho says I should go and write my own. Don't worry. In the fullness of time, it will be written. We are not running away. We're here. But the thing is that these ideas should cross-fertilize. People should read them. That's what is important. And I congratulate, to just wrap it up, Mr. Minister Olusegun Aganga, who has provided this opportunity to reflect again on the Nigerian condition. And I hope that, the book will be given to the president by Mr. Wale Edon, who represented the president, and that the president would read it and see if he could get some ideas there. Minister Aganga being a very top policymaker, both locally and also in diaspora, a man of very rich experience and competence, who continues to make himself available for the progress of Nigeria.